Hello, I'm Christopher Hine, and today we're going to be talking about, still working on the intro and it gets me every time. Today we're going to be talking a little more about the internal power thing, and today we're going to talk about connecting to force, so what it is to connect to force. There's lots of little subtle ways that this happen. Understand if you can connect to whatever's making the force, you will seem much stronger because the act of putting force into you will disrupt what is forcing you, and so then that will make the force weaker, and you are attached to the stability of the force, and the force needs its own stability in order to move you, so it gets crazy real quick. So I'm going to show you a couple ways that happens today. I think this is a pretty deceptive one. Most everything happens with leverage and force angle, which are the first two I covered. This is another one that really does end up using leverage and force angle in a few ways, but actually connecting to the force is a different principle, and there's lots of cool ways we can use that. So I'm going to talk about that today. I'm going to get Josh over here. We're going to go to work. Josh? All right, let's continue our part 3 of internal power and what internal power is. And understand that these things that I'm showing you, they're principles that can be used. I feel like a lot of times they're used a little nefariously, and people are using them to deceive other people and make people think that, you know, they have powers that they don't have. All of the stuff that I'm showing in these demonstrations is accessible to anyone. It's accessible to you right now, right? So if you understand the demonstrations I'm giving, you can do these things right now. There's a little bit of skill that can be built with them that, you know, you can use them a little better as you practice them more. And also, you know, once you understand the principle, you can apply that principle to situations that are of martial context. But most of these things are already at play, right? So when you see sport martial artists fighting in the MMA ring, they are not unaware of these things. They might not understand them on an intellectual level, but they are unconsciously using these things all the time, right? So, okay, the one we're going to talk about today is connecting to force, or sometimes I say connecting to force structure, because that's what you're doing. You're connecting to the structure that's making the force, right? These two things I'm going to show are really highly into the tricky area, so I'm going to show you two real tricky versions, and then I'm going to show you a regular version that's used in wrestling all the time, right? So constantly used in wrestling. Okay, so before I showed you how with force angle we could give you the deception that if Josh was trying to push me over, right, and he's a big guy and he's stronger than me, he does that, and then he tries to push me over and I change the direction of his force angle, all of a sudden I seem real strong, I can stand on one leg and all this kind of stuff, right? So and that's because I'm going at a different angle to his force, and that's distracting his force and doing all kinds of cool stuff. There's another way I can do that seems like maybe it's impossible to do what I just did. So if Josh put his hands on my shoulders, right, and Josh goes to push into me, he's going to push real strong. Okay, now Josh pushing hard, and I'm standing right here. Look at him. Josh is starting to fall over, but I'm not. I'm stable on one leg, so how am I doing it? I'm doing a very similar thing, and the way I'm doing is I'm connecting to him, right? And so I'll get all the advantages of force angle, plus I'll kind of get some of these advantages of the connecting to force structure. So when he pushes into me, all I do is I put my hand up underneath his arm right here. So when Josh pushes into me, this is what happens to me as he pushes me, right? So when he does that, he's now pushing into himself, and you see him, like as he pushes real hard, he'll start to lose balance and all kinds of stuff because I'm connecting to him. So he's actually disrupting his own balance by pushing into me. So he's using his own force to destroy his own balance, right? And I am borrowing from that because I'm connected to him. So I do have to have somewhat of a strong arm to connect to that. But once I do that, I'm really in a stable position. Now this is used deceptively all the time. There was a video that circled around maybe 8-9 years ago that was an internal martial art master. And he had this really big power lifter guy trying to push him around, and the power lifter couldn't push him. And all the people who are into internal power were saying like, oh, see, this is real proof here because that guy's a real strong guy and you can't push him over. And I told them all that it was this, and they said, oh, no, it's not. So I made them a video explaining this, and they said, oh, it's not that. And then I took the video and I circled where the guy was doing it, and they said, oh, it's not that. And so it's like, you know, at a certain point, people just will believe whatever they want to believe, but this is a way you can show that. And it's just connecting to force structure, and that's a deceptive way you can show it, okay? Another way you can show it is, and real quick, I'm just going to prove. So if I want to pick up Josh, I can pick him up, right? Okay, so no big deal. I can totally get him up. Now, when I go to pick up Josh, Josh is going to put his hands on my elbows from underneath, and he's just going to push up against me. Okay, now I'm going to try to lift him exactly the same. And now I swear I'm using absolutely all my strength. That was exerting. And I still can't get him, right? And it feels like he is so much heavier. Now, there's a couple things at play here, right? One is leverage. There's leverage at play because when Josh connects to my elbows, I can't line myself up, right, to get a nice angle to have a zero lever angle that I can be strong. And then two, he's connected to me. So when I'm pushing up, I'm actually pushing up against myself like this, right? So I'm putting myself into a crummy position by doing that. So I can't get underneath and lift him up. Now, I have done this in crowds of people. I had a little student who was like 5 foot nothing, maybe 90 pounds, and I would have some big burly guy pick her up, and everyone go, oh yeah, of course, and then do this, and the big burly guy would grunt and strain and not be able to get her up, and everyone would be all, oh my God, they've got such amazing powers. So that's a demonstration that can be done. And then I, of course, explained to all my students immediately how that works. I didn't tell the people in the demonstration I wanted them to come to the dojo. But so there's nothing illegitimate about the fact that that is something that does happen, and that's a way you can use that. And I'll show you right now how it's done legitimately all the time. But it seems like that shouldn't be possible. It seems like that's something miraculous, and so they must have some mysterious power. They're just connecting to the structure of the force, right? Okay, now here's a way that this is used in wrestling all the time, right? So in wrestling, if someone got a position like this, they pick someone up, right? If Josh grapevines around my leg, he wraps around my leg, and Josh is pushing his leg forward, as I go to lift Josh, it feels like Josh weighs a ton, and it's super, super hard to get him up because he connected to me. So he connected to the structure that's making the force, and so it makes it really, really hard for me to lift him. Now that technique's practiced all the time in Greco-Roman wrestling, all kinds of wrestling styles to grapevine someone and connect to the structure that's making the force, and it makes you really heavy, hard to pick up, hard to move around. It's a really useful skill. So it's used legitimately all the time, is something that exists in martial arts, but is sometimes shown in demonstrations to look like more than it actually is. And if someone's really trying to trick you with that and tell you that, you know, the only way you're going to get that is meditate on a mountain or hit yourself or whatever weird shit they've got cooked up, it's probably not something worth looking into too much. So that's connecting to force structure. If you guys have more questions, I could do a few more of these. Really, as we start to get into finer and finer variations of it, it's just more deceptive tricks. I think these three things pretty much show you everything that you need to see. Leverage is going to be the vast majority of it. There's some kind of mechanical advantage going on. Leverage is definitely something you need to know about in martial arts, but can be used in ways that are deceptive and tell you something else is going on other than leverage, right? Then force angle is another really deceptive one that can create all kinds of mysterious stuff. A woman made an entire career making millions of dollars at the turn of the century showing force angle stuff, so that is really deceptive, but again, just a regular principle that can be used. But if someone's selling it as something other than force angle, they're probably trying to trick you. And then connecting to force structure or connecting to force is another one that you can use that's used a lot of times by modern magicians. I've seen these things being used by modern magicians today. So these three really encompass most of what that stuff is. A lot of times too, when you're seeing people who are internal power experts, you should look at the person who is the greatest exemplar in the system. If they are an ex-bodybuilder, ex-power lifter, ex-pro athlete, and they have all this amazing force when they have all their people or these tiny little people they demonstrate with, well, that tells you they're probably just a physically strong individual. So you know, be on the lookout for this kind of stuff. When people are teaching these kinds of things, they should be telling you that it's a simple skill and it's simple physics, and not just saying those words and then not being able to explain how it works. They should then be able to explain how it works. So that's my my little rant on this stuff. So if you guys have any more questions, please let me know. But that's basically it. I am Christopher Hine. This is Joshua Teehee. Maya Solana McDaniel's behind that camera right there. Is she giving you a winky wonk? All right. We will see you guys next time.